and welcome to Celtic State of Mind. It's Friday and that means one thing. My name is Laura Bradburn and I'm joined as always by Tony Haggerty. How you doing, Tony?
I'm very well, Laura. Yourself?
Not too bad. Folk in the chat, if you're watching on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching, Twitch, you'll notice that we are a man down today. I don't know if Jim has been doing an Ismaili Asoro and been running about battering folk or what, but he's off the pod today. No, personal circumstances mean he can't be here today. Hopefully he will be back with us next week. But until then...
I thought you were splitting with me there, Laura, for a second. I'm highly offended. A man down.
We will get it.
It has been said.
It has been said. We'll get into things anyway, and apologies for the slightly wonky layout. We were obviously want to have our sponsors on the screen, and I don't know, technology, Tony, what can we do about it? We can't get our formation right, which is a topical point of discussion, but again, we'll get into that. Before we do that, though, I just wanted to show something off, Tony. I think you might like this. My mother gave me this last week as a wee keepsake. Look at this. Check this out.
Oh, very, very swish. Very nice.
That is my mother's original Celtic supporter scarf from, not to give my mother's age away, but we're talking late 1960s, and that is the original. So she gave that to me as a keepsake, and it will remain so. I don't think I'll be taking it to Celtic Park with me anytime soon. I don't want to spill any Bovril on it and whatever, you know.
Top souvenir.
But we'll fast forward from the late 1960s all the way up to present day, and last night in particular, the game that everybody wanted to happen, Betis against Celtic, finally happened last night, although... for obvious reasons, Betis couldn't wear their famous green and white and were wearing blue instead because of their lack of variety in our kit colours, I suppose. But there are more important things. We'll start off on a positive note, Tony. Yeah. The first 20 minutes, first half an hour, for me, one of the best first 20 minutes I've ever seen us play away from home in Europe. I thought it was a fantastic start. I couldn't believe what I was watching. What did you make of it?
I wrote a column on the Celtic Way saying for the first half an hour they looked like world beaters. And they did, with a makeshift team, and then reverted to type and looked like panel beaters after that, you know what I mean? So, defensively. But no, the first half an hour, I mean, they came out the traps and they were absolutely sensational. The first 20-odd minutes, you know, first half an hour. So, credit to them for that. But again, circumstances dictated what happened after that, you know. So, but yeah, that was, I mean, that. It's a long time since you've seen Celtic start like that. You know, maybe Milan when they went 2-0 up against Milan in the San Siro, but they didn't play like that. You know, they did go 2-0 up in Milan, granted, but they never played the way like that. Let's be honest. But yeah, and that's what's the most disappointing thing about last night: the fact that they started like a steam train and couldn't capitalise on it.
I think for me watching it, it was I thought it was a combination of things. We were definitely hyped up from whatever Ange had said in the dressing room. We were out to get them, and I think they were sleeping at the wheel a little bit from the start. I don't think they expected us to go for it from the off, which, to be fair, I think when you're the home team in Europe, you don't expect the away team to come out and go for it the way we did. But, you know, we're sitting 2-0 up after, what was it, 20-odd minutes?
27 minutes, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, it all seemed to be going so well. You know, like the Ayeti was finding lots of space, working hard. Jota was getting a lot of joy out in the left-hand wing. The right-hand side, I should say, was cutting in an awful lot. Jota was one that I wanted to highlight specifically. I know things went a bit awry, as we'll go on to later on in the game, but he was an absolute joy to watch, you know, finding the space and taking players on, wasn't he?
Listen, I thought he was one of the bright lights last night. He had a really good performance. But I will caveat that by saying he had a glorious opportunity to make it 3-0. Mm-hmm. And somehow went for a dink when I thought maybe a thunderbolt, but, you know, or just hammer it would have been the better option, you know, because chances like that at this level, they have to be taken. I'm sorry they do, and that's a critical point in the match. Celtic go 3-0 up, then That's a big call and a big ask for Real Betis to come back into it. And again, I thought he was very good, and I think given time, more game time, he will be a wonderful asset for Celtic moving forward. But just in those moments when I always say to you, I appeal for strikers to be calm in those situations, and not try and be too clever and just concentrate on doing what you should really do in those situations. The one-on-one is put it in the net, and it did come back to bite Celtic. But I thought Jota's overall performance, I did the man-by-mans last night, and my star men, or guys that I gave 7 to, were Hart, Jota, Roderick and Ajeti. I thought those 4 in particular were the better performance for Celtic on last night, So, I was particularly impressed with Jota, and a better end product, and he'll be a wonderful player, I think, moving forward.
It's always the thing about these wide players that you worry about. They're very often very good about taking on players and beating players, but the end product is where they can sometimes let themselves down. And like you say, hopefully if that improves, he'll be a fan favourite at Celtic Park. One of the ones that gets on the ball and gets you out your seat when you're watching him. Just before we move on to the rest of the match and what transpired, looking at your other star men, I'll start with Joe Hart. Had a lot more work to do than he has in other matches this season, and I thought, fared pretty well. What was it about his performance that you particularly liked last night?
I think he had a couple of brilliant saves. The header from the corner was a brilliant save. That to me was vintage Joe Hart. That's what he brings. And I think his concentration levels are spot on. The Ross County save on Saturday, that was another pivotal moment in the match. When he had nothing to do up until that point, then throws himself, to his left and pulls off a great save. You expect him to do it. That's what he's there to do. But he just instills confidence. And Real Betis will try to get back into it, and he pulls off that save, and it just gives you a big lift. You just know there's, I read a tweet or I read a message, somebody saying if Barkas or Bain are in the goals, it finishes 8-3. So that tells you all you need to know about the Celtic supporters' confidence in Joe Hart now, and I don't think he could be faulted for any of the goals.
I was going to make that exact point. I think you can think that a goalie's had a bad performance because we've conceded 4 goals, but at the end of the day, he can only deal with. There are such things as unsavable shots, and if he's not at fault for the goals, then it doesn't really matter how many he concedes.
And also think the third goal, he was really, really annoyed at Starfelt and Cameron Carter-Vickers, because he was making the point, how can a big, massive, burling centre-forward get a tap-in? Why don't you pick him up? I think that was the gist of what he was saying. The guy's hardly inconspicuous, and he ghosts, and I mean ghosts, in between Starfelt and Cameron Carter-Vickers. So Joe Hart was saying to himself, come on, that you're leaving me, you're leaving me exposed here. It's a bread and butter cross into the box, you know what I mean? Shouldn't come in the first place, but we'll go into that. But, you're relying on 2 big guys to pick up their big guy. Again, I'll go back to Ibrox. Do you want to get the big guys that are coming in to plant the ball in your net? How's about marking a centre forward that wants to plant the ball into your net? And I think that's what Joe Hart was. It kind of struck me as Joe Hart was saying, no, again, how many times, guys, you need to switch on and at all times, so I absolved Joe Hart of any of the blame for 4 of the goals last night, and he had about 3 or 4 really good saves as well. So, as you said there, you can look at that and think, goalkeeper's had a shocker, but he actually didn't. It was those in front of him that never gave him protection that had the shockers.
Yeah, I think there was only one of the goals. I think it might have been the second one that I felt he could have came out and closed the angle a little bit more than he did. But I think I'm probably nitpicking as far as that's concerned. I think he did have a great performance. I started this season saying Joe Hart's had a great performance through gritted teeth, because we all know, Tony, that was not he was not my preferred option. But I have to say, time's going on, and he's certainly one of my favourites in the team. I just love seeing somebody, regardless of what we've spoke about there about his goalkeeping ability, which, his shot stopping at least is not in question. His distribution's a bit more in question, but I just love somebody with the attitude that he's got, the leadership that he shows. I mean, it speaks volumes that we've got certain players who have been at the club a lot longer than him, and he's got the captain's armband when Callum McGregor's not there.
Tells you all you need to know, doesn't it? That's an experienced leader. I know. I'm of the opinion that a captain has to see everything. Callum McGregor's kind of the only one behind him is Joe Hart, but he see everything. So I quite like that fact. He sees everything, and he has the benefit of wisdom and experience having played in a lot of big European games. So he can talk guys through things, and that will all help. It augurs well moving forward, and I'll give him real credit for he's bought into it, hasn't he? From the get-go, from the moment he sat down in the press conference, he was convinced that he was joining something special. And even last week when he had the wee tribute to John Thompson, in the warm-up and stuff like that's just a guy that gets it. And I think that those kind of players warm the heart and minds of the Celtic supporters. They see that he's not just here to pick up the money. He wants to make a valid contribution. And you can see the state of him when he loses a goal. He's apoplectic. He's always looking for somebody to blame, apart from himself. And
I think the thing with the John Thompson thing, just to jump in there, is, we often say, listen, players are not going to care about our club the way we care about our club, and I get that. But there's no excuse in the day and age of the internet not to know a bit of the history of the club that you're playing for. And I think it doesn't take an awful lot of effort, particularly if you're a goalkeeper, to be honest, because he can just, Google iconic Celtic goalkeepers and John Thompson will be right up there. I mean, you couldn't have avoided the talk about John Thompson in the 90th anniversary in the last few weeks anyway. But regardless of that, it really takes very, very little effort. And I think he's had a fantastic performance. David Bradley on YouTube and thanks for your comment, says he's a leader, and we definitely agree with that. Just moving on to your more positive reviews before we get to what happened afterwards. Ajeti, I was very pleased to see the performance that he gave last night. He was a physical presence up front, much more than he has been. He was pretty mobile. I think the only sort of criticism I had of him before we came on air that I said was that I felt he's a little bit slow to come back when the offside trap's getting played, and I think that's his only downfall. But what did you make of him last night? He seems to be taking this opportunity with Kyogo out and Giakoumakis not up to fitness. He seems to be grabbing the opportunity with both hands.
Again, I'll get back to the manager in this one. This is where the manager deserves credit, because he's getting a tune out of guys who people would maybe have gladly ushered out the door. So he's clearly got it into Ajeti's head. You don't play, we don't function, we might not score, type thing. And they struggled last week when he struggled to have an impact in the game until late on. He scored 2 goals, scored 2 very good striker, poachers goals. His goal, the opening goal last night, brilliant striker's poachers goal. You've got to be there, and that's why the benefit of being there, it hits a part of your body and goes in the net. That's the whole point of being a predator and a penalty box striker. Doesn't matter how you go in, it went in, and then he's got the presence of mind to just dink the ball past Claudio Bravo as he's coming out, knowing the contact's coming, and knowing if I get my foot on this, he's cleared me out, penalty kick, right? And then buried a header. Okay, it was offside, but still buried it. It was offside, clearly offside, so I'm not disputing that. But the manager's given him some kind of, renaissance, let's say it that way, by handing him this opportunity and saying to him, look, you have to be a main man. And he's took that mantle on board, and I agree with you. He ran about last night, which is not something that I'd seen from the previous Ajeti. And nitpicking the slow to come back and stuff like that. But I guess he's getting used to this position as well, where he's going to have to put in a lot more energy and run about a lot more in his shifts, and he's embraced that. And that's all the Celtic supporters want to see. And he's also added a couple of goals to his armoury as well. So good on him and fair play to him. But I think that's really good management to give Ange credit for that too.
Yeah, Kieran1888 on YouTube says that Ajeti seems to have been Anged compared to last season, so he definitely agrees, and we'll also leave we'll leave Russell Boyce and Charles Sweeney in the comments, our very own Russell Boyce, to their their bromance that they're having in the comments, saying hello to each other. So hello to both of you, and thanks for watching. I think Ajeti, it's funny that you say that about him being in the right place at the right time, because a striker that I always think about when I think of that type of striker is Filippo Inzaghi. And now I'm not comparing Ajeti as a player. I think he's probably got, or should have, more to his game than that. But, you know, people used to slag off Inzaghi playing for Milan, you know, that he was on the end. He had fantastic scoring records, but he was always on the end of moves that he had nothing to do with, and he was part of a team that had much better players. But and he was famous for being offside. He was so keen to be in the right position. But I always think to myself, in that situation, there are times where you can pass the ball. At the end of the day, there's got to be somebody in the right position to put it in the back of the net. And if you're the striker that's there to stick a toe on it, that it's as important a part of the move as anything else. Do you not think so?
Yeah, there's that wonderful quote about Inzaghi, isn't there, that he was born offside?
Yeah.
You know, legendary quote, which always tickled me, always made me laugh. If you're a striker, you have to be in the right place at the right time. You know, that anticipation of where the ball's going to be, you know, you cannot teach that. That's instinctive. And I think that's Ajeti's thing. He's instinctive, because his two headers were instinctive last week. Yet he'd have won and one, and he hit a powder puff shot, team went into the goalkeeper's arms. I think some strikers, see when they've got time to think, it's the worst thing that can happen. See when they just do it instinctively, bang, it's in the net, because there's very little thinking time. See if you give someone like Ajeti thinking time, they overthink it, and then don't concentrate on what they're meant to be doing, put the ball in the net. You know, whereas, you know, the cross come over from Abada last week. There he was with a header, bang, the ball fell off the crossbar, bang, header. You know, these are that's the difference from sometimes with strikers. You know, Kyogo's a different kind of striker altogether as well. So and Giacomakis will be different. So it's a good mix, but I'm liking the new Ajeti, the one that's been Anged. You know, and long may that continue for him personally as well. I'm delighted for him getting a wee run in, and he's shown what he can do. And I think a lot of Celtic supporters' attitude towards him might change now as well.
I hope so. You know, and the thing is as well, like, I know he was a lot of money, but it's a squad game at the end of the day. This is a squad game, and for every Furuhashi who's banging in the goals, and hopefully Giacomakis that is the same, you do need somebody who's perhaps not up to scratch but is able to come in and do a job. And if Ajeti's good enough for that, then yes, it's perhaps an expensive option for that, but, you know, I'll take it over him being an absolute dud as he's looked previously. So thanks everybody for watching, commenting on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, loads of different places. I see loads of people talking about the negatives of last night's game, which we will get to, because every time we talk positive, we're being too positive. Every time we talk negative, we're being too negative. We're trying to strike the balance here, guys. So give us a break. Apologies if anybody's seen any problems with the stream or anything like that. I don't think Tony or I are recognising any breakup in the stream, so it must be something external to us. If you are having any issues, then we apologise for that, but unfortunately that's out of our control. Red Scotland disagrees with me on YouTube, says Ajeti has never looked like a dud to me, Laura. Never. Now that might be sarcasm, Red Scotland. I don't know. It's hard to tell when it's written down, but I'll take your word for it anyway. Tony, we will get on to the slightly more negative side of the game now. The first thing being, and I saw a tweet earlier from Moravchik67. It was shared in our group chat, and he listed, I don't have it in front of me, but he listed numerous times where we've conceded multiple goals in a less than 10-minute period over the last few years. Yeah. So it's not just an Ange problem, it's a Celtic problem. We did it again last night, conceded 2 goals very quickly together, another 2 goals later in the game very quickly together. What is the problem with that? We can say that it's just the defence being poor, but it's much more of an attitude problem than that, is it not?
If I knew the answer to that, I'd probably be the Celtic manager, Laura.
I'm here if not to offer the impossible questions and then just sit back and watch you try to answer it.
Yeah. Listen, it's certainly not an Ange problem, right? But we seem to. Why do we not have a problem getting into a lead, but the problem is shipping it? You know, we got ourselves into an unbelievable situation last night, dreamland really, with a makeshift team. And now this is where people might disagree with me, but at 2-0, it's all about game management then. And game management as well stems from the manager, you know, and the manager didn't really do anything for me to protect that lead. You know, we still carried on the same way. Jota had the chance for 3-0, and I know that's his way, and I know that's he's stubborn that way, and I get all that. But at 2-0, you have to do something. You have to manage the game. You have to slow it down. You have to get to half time 2-0. You were in an unbelievable winning position there, and 8 minutes either side of the break, you've lost the game. You've lost the game, you know, and it's inconceivable, and it's inconceivable because the 4 goals could easily have been avoided. So we take them all on merit. It's a pure defensive header by Ralston, right? Jota is not really tracking back, and Sorrow at the edge of the box, his challenge or half-hearted challenge on Miranda, you know, it's just unacceptable, right? So he waltzes through and scores, right? The second goal, Carter-Vickers, watch the big guy running off you. Don't even attempt to play offside, just match his run, right? Sleeping, switching off. Third goal, Sorrow, not even attempt to block out the cross, but it comes from Anthony Ralston's side. Where's he? You know? Mm-hmm. And then Cameron Carter-Vickers and Carol Starfelt again, letting a big guy, as I said, a centre forward, go stand between them, sticking net 3-2. And then the corner, second ball's anticipation of that. Rogic could have maybe got a bit closer to Wanme, who swivelled and found the bottom corner via the post. Every goal you can stop, right? Preventable. It's not as if they've cut you open. Not as if they've cut you open. You know, and you turn and you say, hold your hands up. And I think that's what was getting to Joe Hart. They were only having to work hard to score. And they have to work hard. Especially when you're 2-0 up. They have to work hard. And see, and I loved a lot of what I saw last night. We've spoken about it at the top of the programme. You know, 20 minutes in and we've praised them, but it's the game management side of it, and I include the manager in that. Now, for me, and we're going to come to him, Sorrow's a liability. Sorrow should have been hooked after 8 minutes because he was lucky to stay in the park for the initial challenge, even lucky to stay on the park for the next challenge. And then, as I say, his attempt at trying to stop Miranda and attempt at trying to stop Rico, lamentable, inexcusable. And for me, Sorrow has not got it, what it takes to be a Celtic player. And the thing about it is, it was ill-disciplined performance from Sorrow, and he's a repeat offender. He keeps booting people and laughing. You know, as if that's a substitute for giving you dynamism in the midfield. It's not. You're clearly not conforming to any team pattern. You're just doing what you want because you keep doing the same thing. You keep going out and clugging opponents, picking up a yellow card and walking a tightrope, putting your teammates under pressure. That's what he does. And I want the manager to see that. You know, and I know he did see it, and you look to his bench and you think, what could he possibly have done? I tell you what I'd have done at 2-0. I'd have played anti-football.
It's an interesting point that you raise about Sorrow, though. And just before we do that, Don't Gift Submate on Twitch has asked where Jim is. He missed the start of the show. No, he hasn't been suspended after last week's performance, like you suggested. He is dealing with some other personal issues this week and will be back with us as soon as possible. But to go on to Sorrow, I think what frustrated me about it was, I mean, when did he get booked? Was it about 20... 8 minutes? It was as early as that, right? Okay.
And honestly, I would have hooked him then.
Well, this is the thing. You said there, you know, I want the manager to see it. I'm going to give Ange the benefit of the doubt and say that perhaps he thought, I'm not hooking him after 8 minutes. However, there's a bit of me that thinks you can't take the risk when the initial challenge, as you said, and as we said before we came on air, to me, the initial challenge, if that had been a Betis player on us, I'd have been shouting for a sending off, because it was studs up. Right. It was, it could have broken the guy's ankle for me, or broken his foot. And I don't think I'm exaggerating in saying that. I'm sure a lot of people will think that I am. But then after that, he's barreling in behind folk. He looks as if he actually doesn't know how to commit a proper tackle. And you're in a situation where, if that's the main part of your job in the team, if your job is the Neil Lennon role or the Makelele role or whatever you want to call it, where your main job is to break up the attack, but do it in a way that doesn't get you in any bother, the minute you go into a yellow card, he's not even get that option later in the match of going, oh, well, I'll take a yellow card just to stop this counter-attack. You know, like, plenty of times we see that type of thing where it's a foul that everybody's aware of. You know you're taking the yellow card, you're taking one for the team. He completely left us out of that option. And I just thought, the more that I see him, the more I just think he's just battering about, having a laugh. And if I was on his team, I'd be going, what are you doing? What are you getting us into bother for when we don't need to?
Laura could have got sent off for the second one and put his team in real bother, which is why I would have taken him off. Because I knew he had that in him again to go steamrolling into somebody, and he did it, and it was only the leniency of the referee that he stayed on the park, because the Betis were crying, screaming for him to be sent off, and he should have been sent off. You know, and I just don't think that the penny's no dropping with Sorrow, and I don't think Ange fancies him either, but needs kind of, it was a needs-must situation last night, but he just let him down. From 8 minutes on, he let him down. And I say to myself, you can't have that ill discipline in your team. And I say to myself as well that I don't think he'll ever make it as a Celtic player, and certainly not the way Ange wants to play football. And if that's the case, then he shouldn't have been anywhere near last night, because he did put his team under pressure, and he did it from very early. And we've watched Sorrow many times, and it's the same pattern, isn't it? It's just the same pattern on repeat. And clearly there's a penny not dropping, or he's just playing for himself. There is no team ethic in him, you know. And as again, using that running about kicking people as a substitute for energy and getting wired in, nah, not for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I think well, I'm going to put this to you. I'm going to play devil's advocate, Tony. I'm twirling both ends of my, well, I hope imaginary moustache. I'm sure people in the comments will tell me if it's imaginary or not, right? Beaton is not a good central defender. We all know that. We all talk about the meme or the joke that has become Beaton playing at central defence in the Champions League qualifiers. His original position when he came into the club was a ball-playing defensive midfielder who, to be fair, when he did come into the club at first, looked like he had a bit of quality in that area and could put his foot on the ball and calm the situation down. Do you think he's a better option than Sorrow going forward? If we've got a few options at centre-back now. We don't need to rely on Beaton as far as that's concerned. Yeah. Do you think putting him back in the midfield is perhaps an option that's better than Sorrow?
Well, you know, your revisionism tells you it probably would have been last night. But I mean, Ange could have done a couple other things as well. Could have brought on Liam Scales. Liam Scales has been playing and is up to speed, you know, and you could have put him, you know, in his natural position and move somebody forward. Now, you still had defensive midfielders, if you get what I mean. You were protecting, or you were trying to protect a 2-0 lead. So these are all things that players have a natural position for a reason, right? So when Celtic go 2-0 up last night, your thought is defend this lead. So bring on defensive-minded players. I know it might go against your nature, but you know you were in a wonderful position with a team that you looked at and thought they might get cuffed, you know, and they didn't. They played above themselves for half an hour, and everything went your way. Everything was spot on, and you get yourself into that dream position where you think you could actually win this. So the very least you take from it's a point, isn't it? You don't go home with nothing. You don't go home with nothing having scored 3 times in Spanish soil. Yeah, you know that, and that's what really frustrates you, because there was some wonderful things about last night. But see, when it comes down to it, see what undid is game management from the manager and the players in basic elementary defensive mistakes in 2 8-minute periods that saw you shoot yourself in the foot. You know?
Yeah.
And you just think to yourself, that was another winnable game.
Mm-hmm.
It was.
Well, here's a question for you before we move on to looking at the Livingston game on Sunday and the weekend ahead. And I also want to talk to you a little bit about the ongoing situation with our lack of a CEO, because I know we haven't had a chance to discuss it on the Friday show as yet. When we meet them back at Celtic Park, I have to say, I didn't fear an awful lot from them. I know they scored 4 goals against us, but I think the way we cut them open in the first 20 minutes, if we combine that with a Celtic Park crowd, I don't particularly fear them coming. I could see us getting 3 points, and that might be a little bit naive of me. And that, I think, is what's frustrating me more about last night's performance. I felt we matched them. We went toe-to-toe with them, and that is despite, let me just pull up our big boss man Paul John Dykes in our chat this morning was we were having a bit of a back and forth. It was actually a really interesting discussion about the sort of benefits and not so good points of the game last night. But Paul listed some of the players that were missing from last night's game that we might have back by the time Betis come to us at Celtic Park. So you've got McGregor, Kyogo, Abada, Julian, Taylor, Dembele, Johnston, Beaton, Forrest and Yakimakis. Now there's a couple of those in there that I don't think would make a huge difference. I'm not going to single them out, but certainly, you know, we're missing almost an entire other first 11, and surely with some of those back, the way the guys played last night, the team that we were up against, you could see 3 points being taken off Betis back at Celtic Park, surely.
There's no surely about it, Laura. I think Celtic can win all 3 games at home. I said that when the draw was made. I don't look at that group and have dread and fear, and I certainly don't have anything like dread or fear with Real Betis at home. What I said was I expected Celtic to probably beat all 3 and take something on their travels, and last night was the ideal opportunity to take something on your travels. You know, and the Martin O'Neill's first campaign, they won the 3 at home and got, you know, and still didn't qualify with 9 points by virtue of the fact they never took anything on their travels. You know, you'd hate to think that this would turn out to be something similar, because the strapline says it all. Was defeat a missed opportunity, or does it offer promising signs? It's a healthy mixture of both, you know, because there was some real promise about Celtic's display at times last night. But it was a missed opportunity, because that team was supposed to go there and get cuffed on paper, you know. And as you say, all the players that are coming back, Celtic will be better. I keep saying it, Celtic will be better in the weeks, months and matches to come. But you have to deal with the here and now. And we knew all these guys were out before the ball was kicked, so we had to make do. And I get that that's extenuating circumstances, and the manager will never look for excuses. You know, he'll never ever say that. You know, he was dealt a rough hand, but you know, we didn't make the most of that, even if it's a rough hand. You know, because you manoeuvred yourself into a winning position, and from that winning position, we've managed to make a pig's ear of it again. It's just a recurrent theme, and Celtic supporters are, you know, they can't put their finger on it, and a succession of managers can't put their finger on it, and it's troubling more than anything else, you know.
It's troubling, but to make you feel a little bit better, and thanks for everybody watching on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn. There's a bunch of places you can catch us. David on Twitter says he believes that we can take 9 points at home from the group as well. So he agrees with you. Maravchik25 on YouTube's commenting that although we're missing a lot of players, Betis are apparently missing 6 first-team players as well. So, you know, it could be a different prospect for both games. But like you say, we have to deal with the here and now and what we've got going forward. So it'll be an interesting return leg, if you like. I know it's a group scenario, but it'll be an interesting return game when they do come to Celtic Park. But looking ahead or slightly closer in the future to the game at Livingston, we've talked the last couple of weeks when we were looking ahead about the Tony Macaroni being a bit of a having a bit of a hoodoo over Celtic. We don't tend to do very well there, and we tend to come a cropper a few times in the years that have gone by. Based on our away performances this season and the position that we're in, whether we will or won't have certain players back, how do you see things going on Sunday against Livingston?
I'm still expecting the green shoots of recovery, Laura. I fully expect Celtic to go there and win. And I'll maybe even take it further and say, I think if they can play anything like they did in that first half an hour against Betis, they could win quite convincingly for once in Livingston. I really do. You have to give them some credit for the way they did perform against a quality side last night, and as much as we focused on the negatives there were some things to really be positive about last night, and you touched upon it. They cut them open in that first half an hour. They really did cut them open, and again, that's with a team that isn't normally going to be your starting 11. So I think if the players are, they have to take confidence from that, certainly, that they went toe-to-toe for long periods with a right good team, and I think they now have to, start believing that it's not a mental barrier that they can't win away from home. So what better way than to shake off that or get that kind of hoodoo out the road and go and win convincingly on Sunday against Livingston, go and put in a similar type performance, the way they played in the first half an hour, and then maybe the way they ended the match, because they came on strong a wee bit at the end as well, and Randy Ralston gets a goal, and for a few seconds you thought we could get a point out of this, but game management, Betis sort out, you know what I mean? So you're back to that old, it was a game of fine margins, but if you defend the way Celtic did, then is it any wonder you're conceding that amount of goals? You just can't do that at any level.
No, it's a disappointing one, and I'm just looking as I'm talking to you at the table at the moment. You're talking about Livingston, who have lost the last 4 of their league matches and drew the opening match of the season. They have, not managed to score an awful lot of goals. They have conceded an awful lot of goals. I think they've only scored 2 goals and they've conceded 9, so we're in a situation where if we're going to get an away victory against anybody, it's going to be them, because they really have started the season poorly. Looking at one player that I'm interested to talk about, Georgios Giacomakis, I would like to see him ready to go for Sunday. I don't know if that's going to be a possibility. I don't have any information to tell me otherwise, but it's a bit of a strange one, don't you think, that he's not come in and been ready to go? I've been talking to a few people on Twitter and things like that, and sort of saying, what has he been doing the whole pre-season if we're in a situation where he was signed, however many weeks ago it is, and we've still not seen hide nor hair of him yet?
It baffles you, doesn't it, that you would sign a striker who's not first team ready and fit and ready to go. That kind of baffles me, why you bring a guy in and we say, but it's going to take him weeks to get up to speed. This man's a professional athlete. You know what I mean? So even if you're not playing, surely you're ticking over or you're keeping yourself fit. So I would, again, that's on the question I would like answered, Laura, as well. Why is Georgios Giacomakis not ready to at least feature at some point on Sunday? No, maybe come off the bench. Because like every new signing, supporters are desperate to see what they can bring to the table. They've watched all the YouTube clips and, scored a variety of decent goals. So now you want to see him. So where is he? Where's Georgios? And like you, I would like to see him, and I'd like to think that he's not far away from being included in the, in Celtic squad for Premiership matches at least. Because if he's not, then why did they buy him? Yeah,
I'm seeing a few folk in the chat saying he's as much as. I didn't see Ange's press conference this week, but there's some people suggesting that Ange has said he's as much as 3 weeks away from fitness at the moment, which
3 weeks,
I find a little bit I would have thought, fair enough, I know match fitness is a different kettle of fish altogether, but I'd have thought there would be a certain level of fitness that he would have kept up over the summer in this modern day and age, that he would never be 3 weeks before he can play a game of football. But, that's maybe naivety speaking on my part. Looking at the other positions and things like that, how much did we miss Callum McGregor? And if he comes back in, hopefully we can see the benefit of. He's suffered a little bit from the James Forrest syndrome, I think, of some people thinking that we can do without him, and then we do without him, and you see exactly what it is that he brought to the team.
We lost one heartbeat of the team in the summer, and that was Scott Brown. And when you replaced it with another beating heart, Callum McGregor, and if Celtic supporters don't know what Callum McGregor brings to the table, then I'm sorry. You only need to look at last night to show what you were missing. I wrote a column in the Celtic Way last week or the week before saying if Callum McGregor gets injured, Celtic are stuffed, and it's come to fruition. One game without him, and they lose goals that he would have been there to help shore up. He would have, just his presence, and even at 2-0, they could probably have gone on and managed that game. He would have been an inspiration. He would have helped. So he was sorely missed last night. Sorely missed, and you're now appreciating Callum McGregor's worth. I think most Celtic supporters will appreciate his worth and what he actually brings. And he's quite an unassuming captain, but he's took to the role really, really well. And even that, just taking the ball from the defence and playing that pivot stuff, it's changed his game, but no complaints. He's not spat the dummy. He's not said to the manager, I don't want to do this. It's a wholehearted player who loves the club and loves the fact that he's now seen as a linchpin in that team, which he is. And you remove him from that team, you remove a bit of the heart and soul of Celtic, and it was more evident last night than ever.
Having said all that, I think everybody agrees that he's perhaps been overplayed the last few years. There's perhaps I personally think that Ange knows that, and that's why we've seen him being getting taken off in games. We never used to see him getting substituted, and although it was said that he had a knock and missed the game last night, again, that might be management of his condition. I think we're going to have to play a lot more games without Callum McGregor this season than we have done previous seasons. And to be honest, I think it's absolutely justified. Do you think we can manage enough without him in the games that we are going to miss him to still keep up our performances, or do we rely that heavily on him that every time we're without him we're going to struggle?
I'd like to think not, but on the evidence of last night, you would have to say that what you said, the latter part of that sentence, is probably going to be true. But this player's played an astonishing amount of football in the last 5 or 6 years. I think his average minutes are they're over 5,000 if you break it down past 5 seasons. That's incredible. That's an incredible amount of football. That's an incredible amount of, to put your body through that. Yeah, he doesn't flinch because he wants to play. He wants to play at all times, and he's been quite fortunate as well that he's never been injured. He's never had a long-term injury to my knowledge, has he? Because he's just
not that I'm aware of, no.
He just seems to have been an ever-present. And again, another one that's maybe been taken for granted a wee bit. And then when you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Well, he was gone last night. And what a big hole Celtic had in that midfield. Just his presence is inspiring. Again, another one who just gets it, just knows what it, and knows his role. He's comfortable in his role, and he's comfortable in his skin, comfortable in a Celtic jersey. And I've got nothing but admiration for Callum McGregor, and especially what he's put his body through for club and country, and never once flinched or shirked it or said, or took a dive. Maybe thought to himself, I'll sit this one out, boss. He's the first guy that says, might be carrying a knock, but I'll play. So whatever knock he's carrying, you'd rest assured that kept him out that game last night. So I just hope that it's not serious and he misses 2 or 3 on the spin, I hope to see him return on Sunday. But again, would the surface come into play there as well? Would you risk him on that kind of surface if it's traditionally Celtic don't fare well there, and so will Ange think I've got enough to cope without him for this one, especially on that surface? So these are all things that the manager has to factor in, because I wouldn't want him risked on that surface if it's something that could flare up or niggle again. So I would say, if that's the case, if he's touch and go, then I would maybe prefer to leave him out, because we've got bigger matches to come. But again, the player might say himself, I'm not 100%, but I want to play. So, and then that's the manager's call then, isn't it?
It is. My way of looking at it, and I see a couple of people saying so in the chat, that, as far as McGregor's concerned, if we can do without him, then we probably should against Livy, just to give him that extra bit of time to recharge. But like you say, McGregor's determination and competitiveness and willingness to play, you don't play that number of games that he has done without a real desire to pull on the shirt, and that might be easier said than done, but it will be interesting to see if he's there. Before we go on to talk about other events at the club off the playing field over the last week or so, one last thing I wanted to talk to you about as far as the playing thing's concerned is Christopher Julian. Now, we have heard various dates of when he may be able to return, October being the latest one. A couple of things that have sprung to mind for me is, is he going to be a welcome return to the team? Is he all he's been cracked up to be? Do you think absence has made the heart grow fonder? And also on top of that, are we going to get the same player back that we've had, given the severity of the injury that it appears to have had?
We'll find out when he plays and he rushes headlong into his first 50-50, if he does that or not. I think footballers, when they get an injury like that, some are reluctant to commit to those things, but others just say, right, it's now or never. And I think Big Julian had a knack of scoring some important goals. You felt comfortable with him at the back. He just looked like a big, reassuring presence, didn't he? Even if he's not all that himself, but there's certainly a defender in there. And I think when he comes back, he'll be a welcome return. A lot of people were touting him as a captain, possibly, in front of McGregor when it was up for grabs at the end of the season. So that's how highly he's thought of. And again, another one who's embraced it, seems to get it and enjoys it, and brings the best out in him. So we'll soon find out. But like you, I think everybody's just interested to see if he will be the same player or a shadow of the player that he was before he got injured. And let's not forget, he clattered that post at some rate of knots. Yeah, in the TV screens, when you watched it, you heard the thump. It was pretty nasty. And with knee injuries, I don't think you leave anything to chance. This guy has to be 100% fit, or you run the risk of wrecking someone's career. So I know it's taken long, and people, it's the uncertainty of August, September, October. Christopher Julian will return when he returns, and not before, because you want him to be 100% fit and ready to throw himself headlong into the demands of this season. You don't want him to come in for a couple of weeks and then suffer a setback. So I'm quite happy that Celtic seem to be treating this with the reverence that it deserves and not wanting to throw him in because it's a needs must. And so I look forward to seeing him back, and I hope if he can recover and rediscover the kind of form that he showed before he was out, then Celtic will, we've won a watch, because I think he's still quite an accomplished big defender, and he will be a towering and reassuring presence at the back of the pack, which is still needed in my opinion.
Yeah, I hope so, because I think even for his own sake and for his personal sort of mental well-being and things, I hope we can get back to full fitness and deliver us a couple of good seasons off the back of this injury, because what you don't want to happen is for such an unfortunate event as what happened with the clattering in the post to be the last that we see of him. Hopefully it won't be. So all the best to Christopher Julian, and hopefully he's back playing in green and white soon. To close out the show, Tony, I was trying to think back before we came on today about exactly when Don Mackay's departure was announced, and then remembered that I did the emergency reaction podcast with our very own Paul John Dykes only a few hours after I'd been on the Bulletin, so I hadn't really had a chance to discuss it with you. I know you've been on the Monday Club this week, so there will be some people watching who've seen your thoughts, but for anybody who usually watches on a Friday, and we thank everybody that does, what were your thoughts on it? I'm interested to hear it, because I've had a lot of time to reflect this week, obviously after the initial reaction that we had. I actually personally don't feel we were far off in some of the stuff that we said, even though that we don't have much more to go on. But what were your first reactions to it, and where do you think it leaves us at the moment?
My first reaction, and I said it on Monday, was that I genuinely wasn't really that surprised by it. You know, and Paul John said to me, you know, and we asked about Peter Lawwell leaving. And my reaction to that was, has Peter Lawwell left? That's what I said. Those were my words. I just kind of left it in suspended animation. You know, it's just such a strange one, isn't it? 72 days, you know, and I also said that anything now is just conjecture and rumour. And the only person that knows what happened is Don Mackay. And because he signed a non-disclosure agreement, the truth will out maybe further down the line, but he's the only one that can nail this in any shape or form. And true to form, you know, we did say that there's a narrative coming out from Celtic, because that's what happens when these things break, that certain journalists who have access to certain information will write certain things, and that narrative comes out. So you read various things, you know, so you try and join the dots and read between the lines, but it's not long for anyone to be in any kind of position. And, you know, everybody was saying it's the old board being anti-modernisation. I don't know if that's true, but that's the wild speculation that's going around, isn't it? You know, and that was Don Mackay's big buzzword when he sat beside Ange, going to make Celtic a world-class club and modernise the whole, you know, the whole club, you know, off the field, you know. So sadly for him, it's not come to fruition. He won't be the man to see that through, and it's always sad when somebody leaves their job. But I think his departure has thrown up more questions than answers, hasn't it? Yeah. And I've said before, you know, fans don't care about these things if you've got a successful football club. You know, Michael Nicholson came in as the acting CEO. And I joked on Monday, I shouted, who are you? Who are you? You know, because I didn't know who Michael Nicholson was. Why should I? You know?
His face wasn't even on a banner, so...
You know, correct. And if you're not on a banner, then, you know, so... But I don't know what these guys do at the club, so I don't want to wildly speculate as to what they do. What I can say, I said, you know, the most important people at the club are the manager, players and the supporters, and always will be in my eyes. I genuinely, board figures don't interest me unless they're impinging on the success of the football club, which is why last season we get so annoyed, because we felt that those guys didn't arm the manager to have a full tilt at the 10. But in general, if you're a successful club, then you should only see your CEO once or twice a year when they're announcing the figures. Things like that. You know, they don't have to put their head above the parapet. Because if they stick to what they do best, then, you know, a club like Celtic should run pretty smoothly, shouldn't it? I think, off the field. But it just always seems to be these petty boardroom squabbles involving certain members, and, you know, and it's things that maybe I don't understand. So I would stay out it in that kind of sense, you know, because I not that I don't know what I'm talking about, but you might be wildly off the mark. You know, but you can still criticise people when you don't feel that they're doing their job which is for the betterment of the football club and the success of the football club.
Yeah, I think it's I kind of agree with you in that the timescale of things was a little bit shocking for me, but I wasn't overly, you know, bowled over by the fact that I heard the news. I thought Dom Mackay, personally, I don't really want to hear too much from a CEO if he's doing his job correctly, but it was clear when Dom Mackay came in at the start that he was willing to be the face of the football club and was doing a lot of public gesturing and grandstanding and that kind of thing. So for it to go from that to as quiet as it did, you did wonder what the change had been. And like you say, we're not here to... We did do a bit of speculation on the reaction pod last week because I think, to be honest, we're a fan podcast and that's what we do.
Yeah.
We are none the wiser, but what we do know is that we're in a situation where we are a little bit rudderless. At the very least, we've gone back a few steps because we've appointed somebody who was already in under the old regime. Now, perhaps I'm doing Michael Nicholson a disservice. Perhaps he's got new, fresh ideas that Peter Lawwell didn't have. We may never know that. But leaving all the speculation aside, as we want to do, where do you see us going forward in the current situation? I've not heard anything about them actively looking for a CEO. I've not heard anything regarding what the plan is going forward. Perhaps they won't share that with us. Where are we at? And do you think we're going to see any major changes at the top before the end of this season?
Well, the one thing I did like was Ange made a point of mentioning Michael Nicholson and said he got on well with him, which struck me as being a good thing to say. That the two of them could work together as long as he leaves Ange to do the football thing. And I think that was kind of Ange's, Morse code for saying, I'll do the football thing. That's on me. You just do what you do, and I'll not interfere as long as you don't interfere with me. So I think that was a kind of wee shot over the bow and sort of saying, "Yep, like this guy. We've had good discussions. I'll work with him because Ange doesn't bother with these things either. I don't think he's a training ground manager. He's never happier when he's on the training ground with the players and being involved in football matches. Ange doesn't want drawn into squabbles." Because he was asked a question after the Ross County game about the boardroom shenanigans that happened Friday and Dom Mackay leaving. And I think his response was, if you think my focus was on nothing other than the Ross County game, then you don't get me at all, which I loved. I thought, brilliant. We get a real kind of statesman as your manager, a real confident, talker as well, great public speaker and just handles everything with dignity. The way you want a Celtic manager to behave. Now, he's not stupid. He knows he has to work with people upstairs. But as long as the people upstairs don't impinge on his job, then he's like you. He'll see them when he needs to. And the relationship can be fine. It can be cordial. It can be whatever. But if you don't annoy him, he'll not annoy you. If you get what I mean. And it's up to Celtic then to appoint these people and get it right. It's not up to Ange. But Ange might have to go to them in January and say, I need money for X amount of players. So there has to be a relationship there. And it has to be, a good one. But I don't think Ange is the kind of guy that will take people telling him what to do on the football front. So, and I think those lines have been clearly demarcated.
Yeah.
So that moving forward, if they're looking for somebody, then they've certainly not made it aware publicly, have they, that they're looking for somebody? And Michael Nicholson might just be, you might find the acting part comes off that and he just sort of goes in. And if that's the case, then that's fine. Because as I alluded to, Ange seems to think that you can get on with him. So, and if you don't hear from him again, I'll be a happy man because you don't need to hear from him, do you?
Yeah, no, I was just going to make that exact point. I've heard a lot of people saying we need representation on the board. We need more women on the board. We need this. We need that. Now, I'm sitting here as a woman feeling like I can say this. I don't really care who's on the board. I don't care if it's 2 men and 10 women. I don't care if it's all men. I don't care if it's all women. All I want is for the Celtic Football Club to be successful, and whoever the person or people are that can bring that to us, if it's Michael Nicholson, even though he was in before with Peter Lawwell, if he's the man to bring it, fair enough, go ahead, do it. I just don't need to hear about it. I saw Terence on YouTube. I think your comments flashed by, but he said he's not disinterested in the board, but he is sort of losing interest in the same conversation going on and on. Believe me, we are on this podcast talking about this as we have done for months. We are fed up talking about this side of things as well. We want to talk about the team, about the results, about the signings, about the competitions that we're in and what we are doing going forward.
Is that the boring, never boring you're talking about there, Laura? Yeah, that's what
exactly, Tony. Like, how often were we talking about Dubai and other things last season, anything other than the football? Ultimately, what I want is a board and a CEO who do nothing but bring success to the club. I don't care what their name is, what their face is. That's it. At the end of the day, is it not?
And I think that's the beauty of Ange, because we have been talking about the football.
Yes.
Since he came in, and that's what gives us all optimism and hope. And the only thing that would remove that is if the board members feel that they cannot work with Ange and his position becomes untenable and he leaves. And that's why I think people were getting up in arms and about Dom Mackay leaving. Does that mean the manager's going to leave? I think the manager loves it here. Absolutely loves it here. And he's telling you that. And, the board would really have to shoot themselves in the foot if they got shot of the manager. It would just be, it'd be inconceivable, really, and incredulous. But I think that's the great thing about Ange. He's got people talking about the football club for the right reasons again. Playing a decent brand of football. We're, going to be competitive this season without a doubt, and things are moving in the right direction. And from what the shambles he inherited, I think that's all you can ask. But there has to come a cut-off point when we stop being a work in progress, as I said before, and we get to work. And I think that's kind of happening slowly but surely. But once he gets the personnel and the players all fit and the continuity in selection, then you'll see the best of Celtic. Thanks to him.
I 100% agree with that. I think we've got the right man at the helm. There may be some teething issues, but like you say, he's reliable and he says what he means and he means what he says, I think, as well. I think we're going to have to leave it there, Tony, because I've seen a few people in the chat starting to talk about American football and NFL and stuff, so it must be getting time for us to shut up and depart. Thanks very much to everybody for watching on all the platforms that you can. Don't forget to subscribe to A State of Mind YouTube channel where you can get football content, you can get music content and lots of other stuff to come. If you do subscribe, or if you are already subscribed, you can also be entered in our prize draws for subscribers where we're giving away lots of things. We're giving away music disc displays, we're giving away posters, we're giving away all sorts of stuff. So get involved and you can be handsomely rewarded for your support of our channel and our content. Thanks very much, Tony, for joining me on this Friday, and we will see you again on Sunday for the match coverage of Livingston at the Spaghetti Head. That's what they're calling it, Spaghetti Head these days. Thanks very much, Tony. Thanks very much, everybody. We will see you later.